Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Carl, a member of the CK-12 team, and my colleague Lindsay and I will be running today's webinar, Teaching Strategies for Using CK-12. We're so glad that you've joined us.
Yes, thank you to everyone who's joined us today. I'm excited to be one of your presenters as we discuss the many ways you can use CK-12 in your classroom to engage your students and personalize their learning experience.
Before we get started with today's content, I'd like to go over a few logistics about the Zoom webinar platform to make sure everyone's comfortable using the different windows. You should see two different options on your Zoom screen, one for Q&A and one for chat. During today's presentation, whenever you have a question about CK-12, please post it in the Q&A window. We will pause for a Q&A session after each major topic to address any questions that have been submitted. The chat window is a place for community conversation. We'd love you to all introduce yourselves right now. If you're an educator, feel free to share your state or country, district, or subject you teach. Just make sure the chat window that you're sending any general post to is the all panelists and attendees, not just to the CK-12 or the panelists. Also, while we don't anticipate any technical difficulties with our broadcast, if you're having any trouble with your video or sound, please let us know in our Q&A window or the chat window.
Excellent. Yeah, it looks like we've already got chat going. Welcome. We've got people from Ohio, New Jersey, Lebanon, Palo Alto, that's where our headquarters are, Florida, Arizona. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your day to join us. We appreciate it. In today's webinar, we're going to be covering the following topics. We're going to be talking about broad implementation strategies for using CK-12. You're going to see different ways to use CK-12 either as core or supplemental curriculum. Next, we're going to be talking about easy to implement teaching strategies, which will cover our new FlexBooks 2.0 platform, concepts, modalities, intervention, and homework and literacy. Our main goal is that by the end of this session, you come away with specific and actionable strategies to engage your students using CK-12 resources. But before we get into the core content of the webinar, it would be great if we found out a little bit more about your previous experience with using CK-12 resources. So we're going to launch a poll right now that you should see on your screen in just a second. There it is. We just have one question for you today, but you can choose all that apply, so you can select more than one if you would like. But we just want to know, what CK-12 resources have you used previously with your students? So your options are CK-12 FlexBooks, CK-12 Interactives, which include our PLIX and our simulations. We have CK-12 Adaptive Practice, CK-12 Study Guides, videos, real-world applications, and then the last box is for any of you who have not used CK-12 with your students yet, yet being the key word here. So we will pause for just a second as you guys lock in your answers. Looks like we've got the majority of the folks, but we're going to wait just a few more seconds here for the rest of you to respond. Okay, why don't we go ahead and share those answers and everybody can see them. Okay, the winner is FlexBooks, which I guess isn't a big surprise. A lot of people know us for our FlexBooks, but I'm excited for Carl to show you so many things that you can either include in your FlexBooks or that you can use in addition to, or just go beyond just the text. Let's see, a lot of you have used our PLIX or simulations, which is great. Not as many of you with adaptive practice and study guides and real world applications. So I think you're really gonna wanna pay attention to those parts of this webinar because those are things that you could use with your students right away. And then again, welcome to all of you who haven't used it with your students yet. You're gonna find some actionable things to get started very soon. So we can go ahead and we can close out of that poll. And one last thing really before we get going here, just a reminder that we have what we call session resource pages. And this is a tinyurl.com link. We're going to put it in the chat window. If you have dual browsers going, you can look at this now. Otherwise, we will put it back up at the end of the webinar but you just might want to make a note that this is a handy reference sheet. It's a front and back side of a page that's going to give you some takeaway ideas that you can, print if you would like, or you can just, bookmark it and use it as a reference page as you're thinking about implementing CK-12 into your teaching.
All right. Before we get into any specific ideas of using CK-12, I would like to talk about using CK-12 from a higher view. CK-12 began simply as a digital replacement for textbooks. We've introduced the idea of a FlexBook, and it sure took off from there. These days, we do offer so much more, but some people are still only using FlexBooks. So you can use CK-12 as your core curriculum or as supplemental. Some schools customize a FlexBook and then use a variety of CK-12 modalities like our adaptive practice to also improve student learning. It's their core curriculum, and the CK-12 platform works great to help deliver great content. Other schools use core curriculum other than CK-12, but still supplement that curriculum with CK-12 modalities like our reads, adaptive practice, study guides, concept pages, real-world applications, and videos. One example is that many schools use CPM, College Prep Mathematics, as their core curriculum. Often that's mandated by a school or a district. It's a great math program that uses the guided discovery teaching method to teach and build math knowledge. But when a student is sick or on a field trip, they don't have the benefit of the teacher's guidance during the guided discovery lesson. So our teachers give links to the reads on CK-12 to help the student learn what they've missed. Also, our other modalities help reinforce their knowledge. Finally, by quickly trying our adaptive practice, they can see if they understand the concept. Whether it's CPM, Big Ideas, or Engage New York, CK-12 is a great way to supplement that content. Once you've decided to go with CK-12 as your core curriculum, there's two different ways to implement it. The first is to use a CK-12 FlexBook, whether you customize it or you just use it along with the other wonderful CK-12 modalities. This way offers the comfort of a book plus all the advantages of improved learning with modern digital resources. Parents like being able to access the FlexBook. It provides a great foundation they can relate to. The limitations of this is that a FlexBook is a linear pathway of learning that is a one-size-fits-all solution. By pairing it with the other modalities, personalized learning is achieved. The second way to use CK-12 as the core curriculum is to only use a mix of modalities without the anchor of a FlexBook. Many of our users feel they don't need a textbook anymore. Instead, it's much more useful to have a variety of modalities for specific differentiated groups. I break my class up often into three groups: the purple group, the green group, and the blue group. I know that the purple group is made up of struggling readers, so they might watch a video first and then do an interactive, and finally look at a read at a basic level lesson. The green group might start with an interactive and then do a read, and finally an activity where I give them a writing prompt. Remember, you can use CK-12 FlexBooks and modalities as is with no customization needed. It's quality content that's been written by proven subject matter experts. Then, when you're ready, you can begin the customization process by changing the scope and sequence to match what is used by your school or district. Also, localizing the content helps engage the students to make it relevant to their lives. In the end, you'll end up with quality content that truly improves student learning. We have many public and private schools that use CK-12 simply because it's a platform that helps them deliver the highest quality content possible to their students. So now we've arrived at the really exciting part of this session: real teaching strategies that you can use in your classroom. Whenever I go to an educator conference, I always hope that there are a couple of real things that I can use in my classroom the next week. If it's all theoretical, it's hard for me to justify that it's worth my time. So for the rest of this session, we'll be discussing ways to use CK-12 that you can immediately implement. One of the first ones here is our brand new CK-12 2.0 platform. We think this is really an amazing way for our students to learn. FlexBook 2.0 offers active engagement of students, a new, simpler interface, and we think it offers many ways to save teachers time. I would frame it like something like this. We release 9 and math science books in our new 2.0 platform. Feel free to use and customize those. Even if you want to convert your own FlexBook or create a new one in the 2.0, contact us and we'll help you pilot it as we work on rolling out the full capacity of these books. Many of our users have told us they love our FlexBooks. They also love the other resources, but really didn't have time to hunt all over our website looking for them. So we listened and we made changes. That's how we arrived at our brand new CK-12 FlexBook 2.0 platform. All the resources that you need are right there in each lesson. Direct access to adaptive practice, to our PLIX and our sim interactives. For the first time, a list of related curated modalities can be found on the lesson page. Teachers can even add other resources like videos and links. The bottom line is that all this means less searching and more using. We have simplified our interface so it shows a cleaner, more focused learning environment. This will prove to be easier for students to focus with fewer distractions on the page. Finding an easy access toolbar to put all the tools and resources just a click away. Our new FlexBook 2.0 platform saves teachers time, something we all need. For the first time ever, teachers can now bulk assign multiple concepts to their students, reducing this process to just a couple of clicks. Like I said earlier, each lesson has hand-picked CK-12 resources right there inside the lesson. No more searching all over the site to find the best content. Finally, we've made it easy to adapt our content to exactly match your scope and sequence. Customization is king.
Okay, well, that was a time that we had planned to stop and see if we had any questions. Looks like we answered the one that was in Q&A. Again, if you have questions during the presentation, it's kind of easier for us to stay organized if you're able to post it in the Q&A window. The chat's more for community type conversation, but I do see a couple that are hanging out in the chat window. One is, are FlexBooks compatible with Chromebooks? And I'll let you address that here in just a second, Carl. And then will a PowerPoint be available after the presentation? We're recording this webinar right now, and within about 24 hours, we will have the recording of this webinar posted on ck12.org/webinars, our webinars page. And you guys will also get a link to that webinars page in a follow-up email from us. So you'll be able to go back and review any of this content that you're interested in. But Carl, why don't you take on the FlexBook question and anything else you're seeing?
Sure. So the question is, are FlexBooks compatible with Chromebooks? And the good news is yes, absolutely. And it's probably one of the most used devices to access CK-12. Remember, any device with a browser can access CK-12. So that includes smartphones, tablets, computers, Chromebooks, anything that has a web browser on it. You can type in CK12.org and begin searching. So I think, the good news is everything's written in HTML5, so it really is compatible across the board. And that's really one of the main reasons that we use the HTML5 is because we want everybody to be able to access it. It's unlike Flash or other things where you have to install stuff. So really good news. There's another question here. Will the FlexBook questions that are into the section be interactive in the future? Yeah, so the good news is, once again, we are working on that day and night. So yes, you will be seeing that. I think in math, they'll be launching with our brand new middle school Common Core books, and you'll see these beautiful interactive digital questions right there throughout the lesson, not just at the end. But I've seen some versions now where they've got a PLIX interactive, and then the student answers questions about the PLIX and gets feedback directly in digital form. So it's been really, I think, a really wonderful improvement to our FlexBooks that we will be rolling out throughout all of our FlexBooks. let's see here. I'm just looking for another question. Would you have time to show how to set up a quick lesson for biology, which would incorporate Flex 2.0? If not, is there a video we can watch? Yeah, we'll see here kind of, we're willing to show maybe at the end, if you don't mind, so that in case somebody has to go, we can make it through all of our content. And then we will be staying on throughout until everybody's question has been answered in the end.
Yeah, so go ahead and keep populating the Q&A. Again, we're going to pause again here shortly to take some more questions. And then anything that might be a little slightly off topic or whatever, we will be able to demonstrate at the very end of the webinar. So that would be awesome. But right now, let's talk about easy to implement teaching strategies.
The first is a set of teaching strategies that all have to do with using CK-12 concepts and modalities. Remember, up until 2012, CK-12 was simply a FlexBook company, digital textbooks. Then in 2012, we broke up our content into 5,000 concepts. We created a concept page with each of them having a variety of modalities for learning that concept. So we'll be talking about the following ideas: linking to concept pages, embedding various modalities into a lesson, assigning real-world applications, using PLIX during class, taking the PLIX open discussion questions into a deeper level, using simulations for physics and chemistry, and finally, maximizing the standards browser to find great content.
Okay, so to help us kind of start thinking about learning using these concepts, we're going to watch a short video where our co-founder and executive director helps everyone understand this fundamental shift in learning.
When I was a kid, I could never understand how electrons kind of move through, a bulb. How does that happen? In reality, a teacher doesn't really teach a book. A really teacher is teaching a concept in a book.
So students set goals for their learning. The teacher set up the conditions for all the available resources, which is, 10 different kids in one class may take 10 different paths and approach the resources in CK-12 in 10 different ways.
It provides kids who maybe learn more traditionally a method, who maybe need a visual aid, a method. For example, we're doing factoring today and we're learning about algebra tiles, and some kids are like, oh, now I understand it, whereas yesterday maybe they weren't. Pick up the concept is easy.
If you think about, as a teacher, you want to teach someone the grain that you can teach so that you can build on that knowledge.
By breaking down a subject into different concepts, the teacher can pick and choose a curriculum that is in the order and at the level that they want.
I love CK-12 content because it provides a starting point for me. If I feel my students need more background on a subject or a concept, it gives me a place to search for concepts to reinforce what we were learning that were maybe not embedded originally in the lesson, but that were provided through CK-12 website in general.
So we'd love teachers to think about moving to the concept-based learning so you can catch where the gaps lie for each student.
So concept-based learning, it's a great way to start implementing personalized learning, and each CK-12 concept page allows students to learn it your way. They can pick and choose different modalities and then use practice to see if there are any gaps. We think digital tools are really changing the way that students can learn.
So one of our teaching strategies that I wanted to discuss here is having you put links to our concepts and our modalities. I think one of the most powerful pages on CK-12 is what you're seeing here for motion, which is our concept page about motion. And what you'll find on here is a variety of modalities, different ways of learning to learn motion, whether it's our read, our lesson, our simulation, a PLIX interactive, videos, activities, study aids, real world applications. You can send a student there and you can say, go ahead and learn about this topic. So it really enforces the idea that students can keep on learning a concept even when they are like they've left your class. And the really nice thing is that because everything on CK-12 can be accessed with a URL, you can email this to parents, and you can email it to, post it on your LMS, and it's a great way to share direct access into CK-12 content. All right, up next is the teaching strategy of build a playlist inside your lesson. So one of the things you can do as part of the lesson is you can put a link into a variety of modalities on CK-12 directly. Now, with the really nice thing is you can do embedding, which is a little bit more complicated, and we can show you that later. But the idea here is, because it's a URL, just put a link to the PLIX and say, you know, you might want to go through this list after you're done with the lesson of activities that I've picked out that I think will help you. Now remember, this doesn't involve like creating an assignment, and you won't get any feedback from the kids, but it's a really simple, fast way to create a playlist that your students can access for the content you want. All right, up next is you can learn and teach using real-world applications. CK-12 has about 2,000 of these real-world applications for many, many of our concepts. And the really nice thing is they engage students with things from their lives. They bring in ideas from, you know, things that students do. And I think they're a great way to start as a warm-up, where you get the students to go in on their devices and read what this is all about. And it's a way of kind of answering the question, when am I ever going to use this? And then, of course, as you get deeper into the concept, it really will help you model and analyze and help the students really build those skills, which are deeper learning skills. All right, up next, I love our PLIX. We have these PLIX interactives. I think we have 1,130 of them. And they are for all the branches of math and science. So remember that we offer a variety of content. And the nice thing is we've identified all the key concepts for all of our concepts, and we've built a PLIX for each key concept. So I think it's a great way to start your class as a warm-up, where you assign, like this one is lunar phases. You assign the PLIX, and they have to read a little text, and then they manipulate on the right-hand side. And then there's a challenge me button, which asks them questions to check for their understanding. Once again, this is a learning activity. This is not an assessment tool. So really, the goal here is for students to understand all parts of the concept. You can also use this as an exit ticket or in the middle of your class. So you can see at any point, PLIX are a really, really good activity. Up next, we have the open discussion questions on a PLIX. So the last question on our PLIX is always a deeper thinking question. And we call them open discussion questions. And they're often questions that don't have simple answers. So you can use it as a writing prompt, and you can have the students, you know, write down a couple sentences. You can do a think, pair, share with it, where they share out with the neighbor, and then they share out their thoughts with the rest of the class. And finally, many of our questions here link to discussions in the PLIX forum in the CK-12 discussion cafe. So your students can join other students and find out what they're saying about these interesting and challenging questions. All right. Another great teaching strategy is using simulations in class. And whether you teach math or science, our simulations really bring concepts to life. And we've hired some amazing animators who go in and take a look at the content and offer it in a really accessible way. Now you'll notice that there's a little sandbox area, as we call it, where the students get to play and they get to find out everything about this concept. There's often a graph that corresponds to it, and they can kind of see the representation in the graph. They can change variables using sliders and other kind of variable that are available on the screen. And often there's like 3, 4, 5, or even 6 different things they can change in the simulation. So the teacher can do it as a brief activity, or you could even do it as half or a whole period, depending on how deeply you want to go into it. Remember that with our simulations, we have videos and worksheets available. So if it's your first time using our simulation, we provide support to you, the teacher, with a video tutorial, which will walk you through the simulation and help you really understand the concepts involved here. Also, we have electronic and PDF companion worksheets that will help you work with this simulation with your students. And so it turns out to be a really deep and thoughtful activity for your students. Finally, we have our standards browser. So from the top of any CK-12, like go to the CK-12 homepage if you're a teacher, and make sure it's from a teacher account, because we do not surface this for the kids, because most students don't really care much about standards. But you can see here we've got the Common Core standards and we've got the Next Generation Science standards. So we have them listed, and then we have the corresponding concepts that support that standard. So you can go directly to the content that addresses what the standard is asking you to teach. All right. I think we're going to pause at this point for some questions.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got a bunch of team members here. Katie was kind of helping in the chat window. Again, it's just kind of easier for us to keep track of your questions and make sure that none of them get lost in the shuffle if you're able to put it in the Q&A window. There's one question in here for you, Carl, which kind of leads into the next section. I know you're going to be talking about adaptive practice, but maybe just as a preview here, Jim wants to know, I suppose my biggest hurdle is that my kids are not great readers. They're used to having a worksheet to go along with text. Are the adaptive questions in lieu of a worksheet?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think, you know, Lindsay, we get asked this question all the time. And I think those of us who've been in teaching for a long time, we get this very big box from one of the large publishers, and it has a bunch of worksheets and interventions, but they're all very static and they don't change. And I think we've created our adaptive practice where it does replace the worksheet, because the problem with the worksheet is you give it to your students. The students who already know it, it's a waste of their time because they can quickly do it. And maybe a few of the questions are good for the practice idea, but after a while, they don't need 50 questions on it. And for the poor kid that's struggling to understand the concept and they can't do any of it, it's not a really good activity for them. So CK-12's adaptive practice is really good at determining what level the student's at, and then it builds on that level so that every student is getting personalized learning at the appropriate level. And if you want, we've had whole webinars on adaptive practice, and they're available by clicking at the bottom of any screen on webinars, and then you'll scroll down and you'll see the archived videos of them. And I would really encourage you to go take a look at some of our videos that we've done on adaptive practice, because I think it's truly a secret sauce. And indeed, we will be offering that as a teaching strategy in just a few moments. All right. Are there any resources for homeschool parents? And I feel like I've hit a roadblock. I don't know how to use it for kids in different grades. Yeah, so the really nice thing, CK-12 is being used by a lot of homeschoolers across the world. We have a forum in our CK-12 discussion forum cafe that you might go in and take a look at, but there is a homeschool corner there, and you can find out how people are using CK-12 to homeschool their kids. But what the bottom line is, they identify the concepts that they need to learn, and they go to the CK-12 concept pages and learn those concepts. And then they use the adaptive practice to really reinforce that learning. So you'll see you're going to get a lot of good support in the homeschool corner in the CK-12 cafe. Will there be any additional college level FlexBooks for high school students that teach college level courses? Already colleges have started developing books on CK-12, and we ourselves have put together a beginning and intermediate algebra course, and so we have 3 or 4 different books now on our college page, and I'll be glad to show you that. They've just put a link in the chat window, and you go to ck12.org/college, and you'll see all the books that we've developed for community college in this case. But like I said, we have our users are out there right now, and they're using the CK-12 platform to develop because it works so well. All right, we're going to pause there and we're going to move on and show you some more teaching strategies. So our next section of easy to implement teaching strategies will show you how to use CK-12 as an intervention covering adaptive practice, pre-post assessment, and differentiated classes. So let's take a look at the first one. Like I said, adaptive practice, we've been talking about it. The key thing here is each student is learning at the appropriate level, okay? So we quickly identify with some really good questions which determine the student's level, and then we build from there. The other great thing is when the student is struggling, we pause the practice and we say, you know what, it looks like you're struggling, and then we offer content to fill in the gaps. An example would be, it'll give them 3 different pieces of content that they can choose from. And one of them might say, 89% of students do better after they watch this video. 93% of the students do better after they look at this lesson. So you'll see that it's really good because right in the moment when the student has experienced the pain of not understanding something, they are offered the opportunity to learn it and then get caught up to be back with the class. So I think there's no better way. There's no worksheet in the world that can do what our CK-12 does, the adaptive practice does. Then the really other great thing too is the reports help students and teachers kind of understand how the student is progressing. And we've just implemented a brand new heat map that I'll be glad to show you in the question and answer period later that is just, it represents the whole class so you can see overall how your students are doing and you can identify problem areas or students that are struggling. Up next, the next teaching strategy that I'm offering is using pre and post tests with CK-12's quiz feature. So our adaptive practice figures out which questions are served up for your students. With the quiz feature, you can pick individual questions from our bank of 150,000 questions, or you can create your own questions. So you can you can pick exactly how many questions you want on each concept, and you can use like the pre-test to assess starting knowledge, and then the post-test, of course, will show the growth on this concept. And all of this is tracked through CK-12. If you're using one of our LMS partners like Google Classroom, Schoology, or Canvas, we can pass the grades back even into those LMSs, so you can continue to work with them there and you don't have to re-enter it. Finally, our teaching strategy that is next is differentiated classes. And I talked a little bit earlier about the purple group. There's my purple group right there. And I have certain students in that group that I know need certain support. So you can create classes or mini classes based on skills and needs. And the nice thing is that when you have people working on the computer, when you have them doing adaptive practice, there's no stigma because somebody, thinks that they're in the low achievement group, okay? Everyone's just doing work and working at the right level. So you can assign things for your whole class to do, or you can do differentiated assignments where different groups are doing different things. All right, and finally now, we have some easy to implement teaching strategies for homework. And I think the first one has probably already occurred to you, but I like mentioning it anyway, because the first one is adaptive practice. And then we'll also show you about flipping our classroom. So with adaptive practice as homework, you no longer have to send that worksheet home. The idea here is you assign a concept and the student practices that concept. And you can do this on a daily basis. You can do this on a weekly basis saying, look, here are the 8 concepts that we're going to be studying next week. And so by Friday, I need you to have completed all this practice. One of the things students love is they love completing the practice on their phone. And they even if they have their Chromebook out, they can often use the Chromebook content for reference as they're doing this. Remember, this isn't assessment. So we're staying out of that realm. This is simply, we need our students to practice their knowledge by answering questions. We offer hints on there, so there's a lot of opportunities to improve their knowledge on the concept. Up next, we have the idea of flipping your classroom with CK-12. You can often assign our CK-12 videos as homework. And then when you get to class, the students will be at a higher level, so you can do a higher level activity in class because they have the foundational knowledge already. Another great thing to flip your classroom with is our interactives, because the students use them to really explore, and this exploration can easily be done at a home, and then when you all come back together the next day, once again, you dive deeper than they went on their own. I also encourage you to pair the videos and the PLIX and Sims with our adaptive practice to kind of complete the students' like basic attack for any concept. The idea here is that students will do at home the basic stuff so that in the classroom we can get to some deeper learning activities. All right, finally, we're going to be talking about improving literacy. And we're going to show you some really cool things about highlighting and annotations, foreign language support, and a teaching strategy about involving our parents, which it just really pays off. So the first one is a video, I think. And
yeah, let's start out this section by hearing from a CK-12 teacher who uses digital highlighting in her classroom to help her students process academic text. So here's just another short video.
A student has more than one learning modality, learns through multiple modalities. A feature that CK-12 provides is the highlighting with different colors. So I'm able to not only emphasize a key point, but I'm able to assign it to a specific color that can also trigger maybe another memory for them.
Yeah, so Anna spoke about this highlighting and annotating, and it is so good. I've been in Anna's class, and I've seen her use this because highlighting is synthesizing. You know, we want our students to get experience working with academic text, and part of that can be the highlighting and then the annotation. You know, the whole talking to the text idea is a really important skill for the students to learn. And then one of the things that I really like that Anna does, and she has primarily English language learners in her class, she has them summarize what the lesson is about. And in 2 or 3 sentences, they have to really pull out the main ideas. And then all of these notes and highlights appear at the bottom of the lesson. As you can see here on this page, they are shown, and they're great for when a kid needs to study for a quiz or a test. They can go look at the things that they've specifically highlighted. Up next, we have foreign language support. Google has provided us the ability to translate any page into any of the like 90 languages that are currently available. And it's, you know, some of them I hear work better, like Spanish is actually very good. They've improved it so much, just even in the last 3 years, they've done an amazing job. I got some feedback the other day, the Arabic is not as strong, but I would really encourage you to let your students access the foreign language support. Often, one of the tips I can share with you is let the students bring up their home language on their mobile device, on their smartphone, while having their Chromebook or their laptop have the English language. So that way it's in 2 different places and they can kind of follow along if they need to or translate, so that they are emphasizing and learning both their home language and academic English. Remember, we also offer Spanish books for many of the math and science FlexBooks, and you'll find those by going to these specific branches like biology and clicking on FlexBooks, and you'll see there's a biology book in Spanish, Conceptos de Biología. So that's the foreign language support. Now, as I mentioned, how do we involve parents? It's something that we know really pays off because, you know, as a parent of a teenager myself, I've often felt a little distance from what he was learning, and maybe he's not the most communicative to let me know what's happening. And I love when teachers say they send out links to the concept pages of the concepts they're covering that week. And the teachers that have done this have gotten great feedback from the parents. And they just send them links. They say, well, this week we're doing motion and velocity and all the different concepts, and they connect it to the CK-12 concept page so the parents can review what they've probably learned in the past, maybe have learned in the past, and remind themselves about it. And they can have discussions with their kids. They can help them with their homework. The other really nice thing is sharing a FlexBook URL with parents, because I know as a parent, often my son had classes where all there was available for content was a Google folder, and I had no access to it. So I really have gotten great feedback from parents that like the format of a FlexBook because it's something they're familiar with. Also, of course, on back to school night, teach your parents how to access the other languages through the Google Translate on CK-12, because they often have like an amazing moment when all of a sudden school that was cut off to them has really opened up. And we spoke to Cynthia Oniveros, a principal at El Paso Independent School District, about the power of CK-12's Translate feature.
I met a parent who was struggling with supporting his daughter because he did not speak English very well. So I brought up the CK-12 on my iPad. I quickly showed him how he can change the language, and he was nearly in tears, and he felt just so excited that now that he could help his daughter, which was emotional for me too, knowing that this is what CK-12 is about. This is what we want our parents, our language learners, no matter where they come from, no matter what language they speak, they need to find a place in our classroom, and CK-12 helps us to do that.
Okay, so let's check in here for a second on how we're doing with any questions. We've got one, maybe had a chance to preview it here, Carl, talking about the uphill battle if kids don't have technology and or kids' parents use it as an excuse, can't learn from a website, asking for some strategies to get everyone on board with buying in.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think it's something that we at CK-12 here have heard a lot of great suggestions. First and foremost, Jason, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to us at support@ck12.org, and we can have a further conversation about what exactly your school is going through and what level of technology you have. But I think, my favorite thing to do is to put you in touch with, or put your district in touch with a similar district that has gone through that process and made it out to the other side and happily have devices now and are using digital resources like CK-12. So yes, we know that it's a struggle at this point, that the infrastructure is not always there. And I think little by little, we know schools are building this infrastructure and getting devices. Until then, though, so many of our students, I think it's 73% of middle school and high school students today across America have a smartphone in their pocket. They might not have digital plans, data plans rather, to access content, but they know where they can jump on the Wi-Fi. And they're very good at that. So, harnessing and really supporting students by bringing their own device, BYOD, you can access CK-12. And what I've even seen in some districts, for the few students that don't have access, they can get them a fairly cheap small tablet or a Android phone for very little money. And that way, every student has technology in their pocket, which gives them access to the CK-12 quality content. The other thing I want to do, Lindsay, is maybe I'd love to go share. I mentioned the reports and the brand new map. So why don't we go do that right now? And I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen and let me share this with y'all. So at this point, I want to show you this heat map, and I'll show you how to get there. But it is fantastic. It'll really, from a distance, you can see this is a sample class of 5 people, but you can see at a glance using the colors that who's doing well and who's struggling, and maybe who has never logged in. Student Ryan. So the idea here is that we are going to give you an overview of lots of information so that you can quickly, at a glance, make interventions. So I want to show you this here. Let's go back to the classes page. Let's go here to my classes. And this is just our little demo account. And I'm going to come into the classes here and bring up the reports. And reports are here on the left. I'm going to click reports. And this is where you're going to see the old reports. And you can see that you don't see very much at a time, and the information you get maybe could have been improved. Well, in fact, we listened to a lot of users gave us feedback on this one. And so our developers worked hard and long and to create these brand new reports that you're just seeing. And in the future, you'll be able to filter the reports to only show you practice or just the quizzes, or if they've done like the reads or the PLIX, etc. Of course, you can still output to CSV, which is a format that other spreadsheets can use so that you can ingest it into your own grading system, whatever your school uses. But you can see the heat map alone, turning it on, just really brightens up the information and pulls your eye to problem areas. So I have a student here named Katie who has been struggling, it looks like, lately, and I might want to go work with her and Lindsay and help them along here. So, so there's our brand new heat map. And, you know, at CK-12 here, we're always adding on, we're always listening. So if you have ideas of how to improve things, please email us at support@ck12.org, and we keep track of those things. And, you know, and then when we have limited resources, but when we have time, we try to take care of some of the wishes of our users.
Hey, Carl, it looks like we've had several questions about adaptive practice, and they're all kind of surrounding the same idea of how much can you customize adaptive practice. For instance, somebody was asking if they can change the level of question, if they can delete the question. So maybe if you could just remind them kind of the difference between our adaptive practice and our quiz feature.
Sure. So our adaptive practice is based on machine learning and lots of data points from usage over you know, our last 6 years that it's been around. So the moment that you want to start customizing it, removing things or adding things in, you won't get the adaptivity anymore, because, you know, if you add in your own question, we don't have any data on that question. So anytime that you want to have a specific set of knowledge that you need to cover, you're going to create a quiz. And I'm just going to show you over here in my library what that's about. So here's my library here, and I'm going to create new quiz. And this is where I'm going to go ahead and say this is my holiday quiz, and I don't need a description. Number of attempts, unlimited. Time, unlimited. I can show solutions, and in fact, I'm even going to show the solutions. I can show hints and show solutions, and I'm going to shuffle up my questions just to keep my kids on their toes. And then what you do is you go in and you choose a concept, or let's say I'm going to go choose motion. I talked about that, and it's a physical science. We have questions available for motion in physics and also for middle school and physical science. And I'm doing it for my physical science course. You'll notice here that I also have the option of creating new questions, and I can add those in, okay? So I'm gonna go select that, and the next screen here says I have 114 questions available, and I can choose whatever number I want. Let's say I'm going to go down to 10. Now, the customization doesn't stop there. I can go in and I can edit, and I can choose specific questions and take a look. So if I click on a question, it loads a preview of that question and shows me the answer. So I can say, oh yeah, that's a really good question. I'm going to leave it there. And then this next question, I could say, you know what? Okay, this question, yeah, my students aren't going to be able to do that, and so I'm going to unselect that one. So you can see here we offer a full level of customization, but understand at the point when you're picking the stuff for other students, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the adaptivity that we offer through practice. So you have a choice to either let the machine be adaptive and use our machine learning to do that, or you have the choice of controlling each question that the students see, and whether that question comes from our question bank or is written by you and added in. All right, Lindsay, any other questions outstanding here?
Well, I have some wrap-up information that I need to do, so why don't we do that kind of as last call to you guys. Again, we'll stay on, so if you have other questions that you would like Carl to demo live, please put them in the Q&A window. Otherwise, let me steal the screen back here, and let's see. Yes, this was our last webinar for 2018, but we already have 2 scheduled for January, and there's going to be more likely added to this as well. So if you've enjoyed today's demonstrations and want to learn more, on January 9th, we'll be running a webinar about CK-12 simulations and PLIX interactives. This is a really great webinar. It's a deep dive into both of those tools, and our teammates Sonia and Katie S. Really guide you through kind of all the bells and whistles that you might not be aware of if you've only, kind of sparingly use those resources. So I'd really encourage you to register for that one. And then on January 24th, we'll be doing the LMS breakout session. Several of you were asking about our integrations with learning management systems. This one is on Google Classroom specifically, and then probably sometime in February or March, we'll be doing one on Schoology in Canvas if you're interested in those integrations. So you can always go to ck12.org/webinars to see our archived webinars and to sign up for any upcoming ones. Just a reminder about this teaching strategies resource page. Maybe you made a note of that earlier. We'll put it in the chat window again, but this is a reference page. Hopefully you find helpful. You're welcome to download it, save it, print it. Just use it as a reminder for some of the things that Carl covered in today's webinar. Each summer, we run an intensive professional development program for educators looking to become CK-12 certified. And to do that, the requirement is that you attend a series of 5 or more live webinars and watch 2 on-demand sessions and complete matching assignments. So if you're interested in becoming certified during the school year, today's session can count toward your live session requirements. If you aren't already signed up for our certified educator program that, people are stringing together certification over the school year, you can email us at jumpstart@ck12.org, or we've got a form that you can fill out on ck12.org/certified just to make sure you're in the loop. And we're automatically tracking your attendance, and we'll get you the information you need to complete your assignments and hopefully put you on the path towards certification. And at the end of every webinar, we do ask for your feedback. So if you're able to take a few minutes at the tinyurl.com CK12 webinar 1819. That's the link where we ask you a few short questions to see what we did well and what we can do better next time. We appreciate your feedback there. And then again, thank you so much for joining us today. And from all of us at CK12, we do want to wish you, our worldwide family, a happy holidays. You are always supported here at CK12. We're happy to help you in any way. You can always send us an email to support@ck12.org. You can also reach out to us on social networks. We love it if you tell your other friends and colleagues about CK12. You can use the hashtag CK12 Foundation, or like us and retweet and all of that on social media. And I think that's it from me at the moment. So I'm going to kick it back over to Carl, and he can see what else he has to answer and to demonstrate.
All righty. Well, there was a question that popped up about the using CK12 with Canvas, and there's a couple things I wanted to show you here since we've got a few moments. One of them is that's something that we've covered in a previous webinar, and I want to show you, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, here under support, you're going to see a link to webinars. If you click on the webinars link, as I mentioned, you're going to see, of course, our webinar right now, but you can also scroll down and see archived webinars. So it covers topics, everything CK-12, FlexBooks, adaptive practice and assignments, and this is what I showed you earlier. We have 2 different webinars on that, getting started with CK-12 adaptive practice and then customizing it. So some really great in-depth webinars about that specific topic. Moving down to, you're going to see we have some sessions on learning management system. And I would encourage you, if you're using Canvas or Schoology, to watch this one. And then here's one about Google Classroom. So whatever you need, we have the support there. The other thing I wanted to point out is up at the top of the screen here, we have our help desk. And I think there's a lot of great information there. So let's go ahead and click on that right now. And you'll see that we've got for different people here. So let's start with the administrators and the IT, and specifically information here about like installing Canvas and requesting a key and all those kind of things. So, you know, we think that a lot of the content that you need is available for you here in our help desk. And for teachers and parents, please go take a look here. Like, how do I start? How to use CK-12 classes? Using FlexBooks, practice and quizzes. There's just a lot of great content about using CK-12. And as I promised, here's specifically for teachers on how to use Canvas. So we've got really good information there that's often just a couple clicks away. All right. Lindsay, do you know we have any more questions here?
I think we were finishing up a few things in the chat window. Somebody asked for the URL for feedback. I don't know if a member of our team can type that in, but it is the tinyurl.com/CK12webinar1819. And that'll be sent to you in the follow-up email that you will receive tomorrow as well.
Great. And I can see there's a question here. Is there a way to embed questions in our videos to test for understanding? Currently, we don't offer that feature. And I know that other sites do offer it, but that is not something that we've tackled yet. And I do ask that, you know, I love, you know, ideas like this. And just remember, we're about 35 people here in Palo Alto, California, with a handful more over in our Bangalore, India office, but that's all we are. We are so few people to make all this magic happen. So we do appreciate your ideas, and we will work really hard to implement as many of them as possible. So let's see, any other questions here, Lindsay? Are we about
I don't
done?
think so. So again, we appreciate everybody for joining us today. We hope you guys all, hopefully you get some time off, have a break coming up, enjoy the holidays, and we will see you in the new year for a new webinar.
Sounds great. And
thanks, everybody.
Everyone go home now or go off, and I look forward to having you implement many of these strategies that you've learned today to help your students learn. Thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing you again.